Welcome to this deliberation on the harmful aspects of different microbes. Here in this lecture, we will be covering the different harmful aspects of virus, bacteria and algae. We will start with viruses. In this particular slide, you can see the different organs, that is the brain, the nervous system, the respiratory system, the digestive system are infected by large number of viruses, and the common pathway through which the virus enters the human body are the respiratory tract and also the digestive tract. Now I have classified the viral diseases into different types, which include the common diseases, epidemic diseases, chronic diseases, complex viruses, cancer-inducing viruses, and immunodeficiency viruses. You can see in this particular slide, this is the life cycle of the SARS virus within the cell. The SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is caused by the coronavirus, and having the normal outer protein coat and with surface projections. When the virus enters inside the cell, they will produce the RNA and also the enzyme, that is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. And then they will be utilizing the host cell machinery to produce the different protein. And these protein components will also be transported to the membrane by the same Golgi apparatus. And ultimately, this particular complete virus particle, by utilizing the host cell's secretory mechanism, will be given out of the host cell. Now, flu is actually a syndrome. So, flu can be caused by swine flu, flu can be caused by the bird flu, and so can be normal, the influenza virus. But in all these cases, what actually happens is the virus enters through an endocytosis, that is a vacuole is created, the cell accepts the virus, and while inside the body, they will produce the specific RNA and the enzymes, and they will get into the nucleus of the host cell, and they will have the specific protein synthesis, and this protein synthesis will be followed by the translocation of this protein near the membrane following the Golgi pathway. And then the viral RNA, after it is being produced, you will be taking up this particular coat or the protein which is already produced and will be vesicled off. So naturally, whenever the cell is getting destroyed, they will produce lot of toxin, lot of toxic product for which the body wants to burn it off, so the temperature goes up. Now in epidemic disease, there are several, but one of them is poliovirus, another one is rotavirus. All these are spreading through water and food, and naturally they are spreading over huge population within a short span of time. One of them is a very complicated one, that is the poliovirus. Normally this is the pathway, that is the alimentary canal. This particular virus enters the alimentary canal, goes into the small intestine and crosses the intestine blood barrier, comes to the blood circulatory system, and then goes into the muscles, and ultimately it invades the nerve. So basically poliovirus is invading the nerve, and because of the nerve infection, gradually the muscles shows degeneration. So there is severe muscle degeneration which leads to paraplegic condition. Similarly, the rotavirus is there, which is also actually an enteric virus invading the alimentary canal. Now chronic diseases are so-called, they can be dangerous, but they are actually present in human body for a long time. We suffer from that disease, we are not killed, but we will sustain the disease for a long time. We say hepatitis B and hepatitis C as chronic diseases, though ultimately the fate is sealed, but for a long time hepatitis B will be in your liver or your bloodstream. And that is the reason why if a person is suffering from hepatitis B, can never donate blood to anybody.
So can hepatitis B and hepatitis C be transmitted from the mother to the child?
Yeah, because of its minute size in nanometer, it can cross the blood placental barrier, so it can be very well transmitted from mother to the child, and the child might show the infection. Complex viruses are so called because they invade more than one organ at a time. Like say for example the herpes simplex virus. It is not having a complex structure, but it is having a power by which it can invade the reproductive canal or reproductive tract. At the same time it can get into blood and get into the brain. So it will cause the disease of neurosyphilis. Persons suffering from neurosyphilis cannot express, they survive just like a vegetable. So the behavior of this virus is complex, and that is why they are so called. The cancer inducing virus, like the lymphosarcoma virus, like the simian virus. And see, this is the actual photograph where the viral particle is entering the living cell through endocytosis. You can see a vacuole is created through which the virus is gradually entering. But what it does, as it enters, the nucleic acid is actually getting into the host DNA, and it will continue with the host DNA to replicate. So ultimately what happens is the viral nucleic acid load increases. At a later stage, they can modify the cell cycle, and thereby they can induce cancer. Coming to another important virus, we call it immunodeficiency virus, because they invade the lymphocytes. You can see that this particular HIV is having an inner capsid and an outer lipid coat. And these particular components, they are very important to identify the host cell to which they will attack. The moment they go inside, they will get into the nucleus, and the enzyme reverse transcriptase, that is from RNA they can produce the DNA. The DNA will get into the host chromosome and will continue to replicate. At a later stage, this DNA expression will produce specific viral protein. So this viral protein will now produce the complex virus particle and will be liberated out. So gradually HIV is increasing within the host cell, and thereby at a particular time you are immunodeficient. So it is not that the moment I have HIV I will die immediately, but gradually my immunity power will go, and maybe at a particular time I will succumb to some secondary infection. The main theme to control virus is to prevent it and not to take drug, because many of these viruses do not have any drugs to control them. So the best thing is to control the vectors. Like you know, in case of the yellow fever, in case of the dengue, the mosquito vector is very common. So we control the Aedes, which will prevent the dissemination of this disease. The second one is vaccination. Production of a vaccine is also preventing the disease. Like you have the whole virus, like you have the subunit virus or subunit of the viral particle, you also have the DNA virus, which will prevent the viral disease.
So why is it difficult to develop vaccine for viral infection?
You see, certain viruses like the flu virus, they keep on changing their epitope. So vaccine is being produced for a certain strain of virus, but that virus has mutated. So whenever that virus has changed itself, you cannot produce the vaccine, or that vaccine will be ineffective to that virus. Clear? Now antiviral drugs are of different types. They can be channel blocker, they can be enzyme inhibitor, like the neuraminidase inhibitor, which is oseltamivir, active against swine flu. There may be the reverse transcriptase inhibitor, like the azithromycin. So all these enzyme inhibitors are very potent antiviral drugs. These nucleoside analogues will be there in the viral nucleic acid and will actually inhibit their replication, like we are using acyclovir or vanciclovir in case of herpes virus. The next one is the interferon. Now interferon are basically glycoprotein. This interferon is produced in animal host against the infection of specific viral attack. But there are some positive and negative aspects of interferon therapy. Now first of all, it is a short course. At the same time, the coverage is specific. There may be immunomodulatory action. These are the pros. But the cons are, there may be expensive, there may be hypersensitivity, and there may be some side effects. So interferon therapy is still in a nascent stage, or even if it is there, it is very costly. Plant viruses have been classified into three major types, that is extracellular or intracellular virion, intracellular virion, and the viroids. Of course, they are definitely attacking plants at their early or late stage of development. For extracellular virion, they normally enter the host cell through some natural opening or the openings created by insect attack. Now, one such particular virus is TMV, and there is also another virus called Holmes Ribgrass virus, HRV. Now, this TMV and HRV are definitely pathogenic to the tobacco plant and the grass. There is a unique phenomenon which I have shown in this particular slide. The viruses are capable of showing transformation. This is the TMV virus and this is the HRV virus. Now, what is happening from that HRV? They have actually taken the HRV RNA, both are RNA viruses, and they have also taken the TMV protein, and they have actually created a mixture of the two, and this hybrid virus is allowed to invade a particular tobacco plant. This tobacco plant will have that hybrid virus having the HRV nucleic acid and the TMV protein coat. Now, what they got was the HRV type, and this HRV type was actually a mixture of the two. So, whatever was the nucleic acid, the virus protein was the same. So, this indicates that in a particular virus, there is the ability of showing transformation from one type to other, because I have invaded, actually externally it looks like TMV, but internally it was the HRV nucleic acid. So, the infection was that of the TMV, but ultimately we recovered HRV. So, can we say that this is viral transformation? And this experiment was done by Frankel Conrad. It's a famous experiment. We will talk about the tomato spotted wilt virus. Now, this particular disease is also occurring only when the virus is inside the cell, or the RNA actually is active when inside the cell. This is the famous viroid which is called potato spindle tuber virus. Now, this potato spindle tuber virus, they actually is having a double-stranded RNA, and this RNA is having a central domain which is the infectious domain. There may be right side domain, middle domain, and the extreme left side domain. These domains are definitely having some specific function, but most importantly, the central domain is controlling the infection. Unlike animal virus, plant viruses cannot be controlled easily. Either you can make it genetically resistant, by which you make the wall hard, there will be some polysaccharide layer which will not allow the virus to enter, or after immediately you detect the disease, you destroy the plant. So, you remove the infection from that particular arena. Otherwise, there is no specific way by which you can prevent viral disease in plant. The water we take, the food we take, that actually is the possible source of viruses. Here, one such virus is the norovirus, the Norfolk virus. This particular virus is entering the alimentary canal and it is settling down into the human intestine, ileum. And you can see this is the normal villi, but because of the viral attack, the villi has lost its structure. The structure is completely changed. So, what basically the villi is doing? The villi is reabsorbing water. So, water cannot be reabsorbed. So, basically you will have typical enteric symptom, the rice water stool sort of symptom. But Norwalk virus is actually a dangerous virus because there is no specific way how to treat it. And you know, intestine will also have other bacterial pathogens. So, a mixed infection will occur which will make the situation more worst. Anytime and every time we suffer from this virus, which is hepatitis A, we call it common jaundice virus. Now, this hepatitis A infection is having the following stages: ingestion, then replication in the alimentary canal, and then transported to liver, and it ultimately attacks the liver hepatocytes, and thereby they will increase the amount of bile. That means there will be increased amount of bilirubin produced. So, when the body is having elevated percentage of bilirubin, it cannot be actually coming out into the alimentary canal. So, it will be filtered in the kidney. So, naturally the urine becomes yellow and the fecal matters becomes white. So, hepatitis A infection is a very common pathogen to which we have the vaccine right now, but hepatitis A ultimately damages the liver to a great extent, which will necessitate our diet control. The best way to detect is the development of symptom, which may be the yellowish tinge in the eye or their yellowish tinge in the nail. Because there is excess of bilirubin in your peripheral blood vessel, you will have this yellowing of your body. So with this, we conclude the different aspects of viral harmfulness, and we will pass on to bacteria. Bacterial infection can be also, like virus, invading different organs. In this particular slide, you can see there is the infection of the bacteria in the neural system, in the respiratory system, in the sense organs. It can also be the skin infection. It can also be in the subcutaneous space. Of course, it can be the alimentary canal, and even in the kidney and also the rectum or near the rectum, that is the large intestine. It can also invade the reproductive channel. So bacterial infection likewise can be of different types. I have classified it on the basis of the entry. So we will take water or foodborne infection, airborne infection, vector-borne infection, and we will also consider the opportunistic pathogen. Waterborne infection is a very common infection because anytime and every time we take the food which contains coliform or it contains typhoid, salmonella, gram-negative infection. And gram-negative infection of salmonella, you can see in this slide how it occurs. It actually will have the entry, then it will have the colonization in the intestine, then there will be specific symptoms developed here which will ultimately lead to diarrhea, vomiting, acidosis, and ultimately there will be the exit into other organ and also exit from the body. Most important thing is that it is not that the bacteria will be limited to the alimentary canal. The bacteria will go into other organ like the muscles and will cause muscle cramp. So muscle cramp is also very common in typhoid infection. Anytime we breathe in, we are very much prone to infection by tuberculosis or infection by pneumonia. Here what I have actually shown is the tuberculosis infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculei. Now this particular bacteria will enter the respiratory tract. Much of it is trapped in the respiratory tract, in the mucus layer. But those which enter, and if our body is having less immunity, then the bacteria will colonize in the lung. And ultimately it will develop into particular tubercles, or it is called the primary infection. Now please try to understand, it is not that tuberculosis is always associated with the lung. Tuberculosis may be in other organ. So those which are with the lung is called pulmonary tuberculosis, but which are outside the lung are called secondary tuberculosis or extrapulmonary tuberculosis. But in any way, this tuberculosis will ultimately lead to the production of tubercular toxin, which will cause serious damage to the lung tissue or other tissue and will ultimately destroy the tissue, and thereby it is definitely a detrimental disease to which normal antibiotics won't work, because Mycobacterium is not treated by normal antibiotic. The best thing is to treat it with multi-drug therapy, or in some cases there may be multi-drug resistant tuberculosis common in HIV patient, which can be fatal. Now coming to this particular disease, which is pneumonia. Now pneumonia is a dangerous disease. Why? Because it is caused by gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. There may be Streptococcus, which is gram-positive. There may be Klebsiella, which is gram-negative. In any case, they will invade the lung. You can see this is the lung alveoli, and in the lung alveoli the bacterial particles will enter and colonize and will ultimately allow accumulation of fluid. So what is happening? The alveoli will have excess of fluid. So blood cannot actually get into touch with the alveolar tissue to exchange gases. So we suffer from a symptom called edema, and whenever we put a stethoscope, we will see that the moist sound is there. So pulmonary edema can be dangerous, and in that it can be fatal sometimes. And pneumonia also is very dangerous, particularly for aged patient, because of its multi-drug resistant nature. Now vectors are normal insects or any other agents which actually spread a particular disease. Here we have considered the disease of plague. Now the plague, which is caused by Pasteurella pestis or Yersinia pestis in rat and human, the flea rat flea which is commonly present in the particular rat is harboring the bacteria, and from there it particularly invade the rat, and the rat bites a particular man and the disease comes to the man. And plague, you know, is an epidemic disease, though it can be treated by antibiotics, chloromycetin. Still, we consider plague as a very detrimental and dreadful disease because of its killing capacity. You see, whenever we say that human body is not actually having a very sterile aseptic condition, the moment we take birth, from my mother I get the first supply of microbes. So that will include friendly microbes, harmful microbes, but because the density of the harmful microbes are less, they naturally the friendly effect is more. But gradually when we are exposed to outside, there may be a condition that the harmful microbes will grow. So these particular apparently harmless microbes can turn harmful. And one such organism is Burkholderia, which will be trapped in the intestine, get into the macrophage and ultimately invade the immune system and will increase the eosinophil count and may cause eosinophilia, which is typically damaging the peripheral blood vessels. So this type of opportunistic infection is a very common phenomena, and that is the reason why whenever we suffer from viruses, the doctors, they don't take any risk, they give some antibiotic so that this opportunistic infection can be prevented.
Sir, can opportunistic bacteria infect a person who's perfectly healthy and not suffering from immunosuppression?
You see, a person who is perfectly healthy will also have the normal microbial flora. So that microbial flora gets mutated. So there is a possibility that mutated microflora may attack the person, but the expression of the disease might be controlled because he is healthy. So a lot depends on his nourishment, on his lifestyle pattern. Now we come to the next part, which is the life cycle of anthrax. That is, this particular bacteria commonly is also transmitted by animals, but I don't say that they are vector borne because the primary target organ is the animal. Now this particular Bacillus anthracis will invade the cattle, and from the cattle it will give out the spore through the nasal discharge to the mouth discharge, and the person who is handling this cow has every possibility to be infected with the Bacillus anthracis, and which is a detrimental disease invading the muscle and the nerves and the multiple organs. So anthrax disease is a wrong notion that it is only attacking the cattle, it can always invade the human also. And because this particular bacteria can be desiccated and can be powdered and still it retains the infectious property, it can be used in bioterrorism also. Plant bacteria is also causing specific diseases. Many of these diseases are limited to the root or to the leaves or to the upper part of the stem. Now one such particular disease is bacterial blight. Bacterial blight is caused by the Xanthomonas oryzae. You can see in this particular slide that there are discrete spots in the lamina and there is a yellowing of the leaf. This yellowing is the typical blight symptom, but the spots are fungal symptom or the fungal disease. So originally, if we actually get a diseased leaf, we cannot say it is only suffering from bacterial blight. There may be other infections. So here also multiple infections can occur at the same time to make the situation worse. In the same way, there may be the Xanthomonas citri, which is causing a different disease. In citrus plant, it will cause the hyperplastic disease of citrus canker. So the same genus can cause multiple disease in plant. Another very interesting bacteria is the crown gall tumor disease that is caused by the Agrobacterium tumefaciens. This particular bacteria will have a plasmid called TI plasmid, which will get into the host DNA, and as it gets into the host DNA, the replication mode changes and there will be a typical tumorous outgrowth. There are two specific symptoms noted. In one case there will be the tumorous outgrowth, in one case there will be excess of rooting. So these are all caused by the incorporation of the bacterial nucleic acid into the plant. Bacteria can be controlled by antibiotics most commonly. Antibiotics can be cell wall biosynthesis inhibitors like the vancomycin inhibiting the cross linkage, or it can be the protein synthesis inhibitor. You can see the different protein synthesis inhibitors like chloramphenicol blocking the 50S, streptomycin blocking the 30S, similarly tetracycline interferes with tRNA, erythromycin also blocking the 50S and preventing upper respiratory tract infection. Normally those antibiotics which are blocking the protein synthesis are called broad spectrum antibiotic because they prevent both gram positive and gram negative bacteria. Apart from antibiotics, there may be other antibacterials like the sulfur drugs. There may be a particular enzyme produced by bacteria or protein produced by bacteria detrimental to other bacteria like the bacteriocin, colicin. It can be preventive. But the research is still on how we actually make those particular antibacterial compound potent. Bacteria can be a very effective source of water pollution, and they are commonly called the coliforms. They can be classified as total coliform, fecal coliform, and the E. coli. Total coliform will include the population which is growing because of the animal excreta. But fecal coliform definitely include those bacteria which are commonly present in the large intestine and the rectum. So that includes that there is lot of fecal matter in the water body. And E. coli specifically include E. coli population which is not good for the water body because it actually increases the BOD and thereby the other organisms cannot survive. And water pollution actually can be prevented by growing lot of algae. And this reminds me that the last topic for this deliberation is the algae. These harmful aspects can be of three major types. One is the algal disease, second is the algal pollution, and the third one is algal toxin. Algal disease is very rare. Like you can see, this is the grey blight disease caused by the algae Cephalourus virescens, where the infectious organ is the sporangium and the spores which will invade the tea leaves. The different blue-green algae can cause a severe condition called water bloom or algal bloom. It is not only restricted to the internal water, it can be in the sea water. You can see this is the island of Sweden and you can see the Baltic Sea, how it is being polluted by the algal bloom. And this is a typical internal water body which is polluted by algae. And this also makes the water body unsuitable for normal fishes. This is a dinoflagellate. A dinoflagellate is a microscopic dinophyceae algae which produces a toxin, and this toxin can be the saxitoxin which will be inside the shellfishes. And when we are suffering from shellfish toxicity, it is not because of the protein of the shellfish but because of this particular saxitoxin produced by the dinoflagellates. So in this deliberation, we have tried to cover the different harmful aspects of virus, the disease causing ability and their control measure. We have considered the different types of infectious bacteria and the detrimental role that they play in nature, and also we have discussed their control. And finally, we have concluded with the different harmful aspects of algae and in what way they are harmful to the environment.